beautiful people. Today I welcome you to the Zen School. I have spoken a lot in my videos about meditation, but aside from theory and concepts, it is very important to show practically how to actually practice Zazen. Well, meditation in general, there are many styles of meditation, but it's very important to build a foundation. And Zazen is your foundation for all different types of meditations to come. Why is this so? Well, in that sense, you are trying to build a house, and the foundation is Zazen, because during Zazen practice, you learn how to calm your nervous system. You learn how to not react anymore to thought content, to emotions, to experiences that arise within the body, within your mind, for example, that are painful or fearful. With the ability not to react to those, you stop programming them into your nervous system. And as such, your ability to integrate experiences increases. And this is what Zazen basically does. It is your ability to incorporate more and more of existence into your conscious awareness without being in conflict. This is tremendously important, because if later you start practicing more advanced meditation techniques, that means, for example, various forms of yoga, especially Kundalini yoga, the energies and phenomena that you experience will vary greatly, and also in that sense, they will amplify everything within you that is still in your unconscious, that is still within your shadow, that you are in rejection of. And those type of meditations will, let's say, be very demanding, because they require a level of shadow work that cannot be done if your Zazen basic practice is not strong. And what do I mean by strong? Of course, I don't mean the ability to harden yourself. I don't mean the ability to get into conflict. I mean the ability to be in a state of non-resistance. The ability to not react to what happens, but to allow it as it is. This is your spiritual muscle, so to speak, that you train through this type of practice. Now, there are many ways of sitting. There are three main ways, at least, that are fairly known in that sense. We can sit full lotus, we can sit half lotus, and we can sit, for example, in the traditional Japanese day-to-day way of sitting, that is the seiza. Well, for most people, the seiza is the most comfortable, and you can sit in the seiza for a long time. Of course, in meditation, we condition our body to develop the stamina to sit longer, first of all, without falling asleep. And of course, we also increase our ability to not be in resistance to pain. That means to detach from the person that is, in that sense, having the pain, lovingly embracing the person, but still detaching from the pain. So we're building that stamina. But form is less important than is general thought. Is generally thought. We have traditions, and of course a lot of us do not want to change those traditions, because they give us a certain structure, certain guidelines, a certain sense of safety. But when you truly meditate, form is actually not important anymore, because you can meditate in any type of position. But before you have developed it, before you have truly grasped meditation, and I'm speaking of that you had an awakening experience, that you went beyond the ego, beyond the psyche, beyond the person, that pain ceased, that suffering ceased, and you were in an eternal peaceful state, even though, in that sense, temporarily experienced, only then you truly understand meditation. Before you're still practicing. That means you're following a method until you've realized that methods are not important anymore. But before realization, methods give us something to practice, and there's nothing wrong with practice, because practice leads to realization. When we go through practice beyond practice, you cannot realize yourself as a Buddha if you hold on to Buddhism. So, if your identity is one of Buddhist, you cannot awaken, because you're still holding on to something. Even the wish to become a Buddha is something that you're holding on to. So then, while we do practice form, it's very important not to cling to form as a safety net. Meditation can happen on a park bench. Many of my students report that when they practice in the school, that they do not get into as deep states as if they go into nature. That makes perfect sense, because Zazen, in that sense, we are training our psychic muscle. It's like lifting weights. But once you're in a natural environment, unobserved, you easily drift into meditation. But this wouldn't happen without the Zazen practice. Even though in group practice we might not always go as deep as on our own, or if we go in, let's say, into nature by ourselves, but we are in that sense building the foundation for the spontaneous awakening or the spontaneous revelations to occur. So this is not separate from each other. In that sense, the practice is total. When we understand meditation, we meditate from the morning to the evening. And then it's formless. It doesn't require a form. Meditation doesn't begin with the ring of the bell in Zazen practice and doesn't end with the bell in Zazen practice. We simply meditate sitting. Okay, so let's get to the practical part. Well, right now, since I'm all in black, I hope it is still easy enough, despite the lack of contrast, to see my legs on the video, so I can show you various positions. All right. So if I put the kimono aside, as you can see, I'm in a kneeling position. My feet point to the back, my knees point forward. My spine is elevated to the pillow. And that is important, because no matter what the leg position is, the one thing that is important to practice is posture. What we want to, in that sense, have the ability to straighten out our spine. There are various reasons for this. Some of them are energetic. If I practice Kundalini yoga, it's easier for the energy to travel upwards because I'm sitting straight. This is important, but what's also important is attitude. Let's say every position that you have with your body is a statement. If I sit like this is a statement. It's a statement of I feel powerless. It's a statement of I feel like I'm a victim. That's my conditioning then, if this is my posture. If I sit like a Buddha, well, why do I do this? Because just the posture instills an attitude of I'm willing to face whatever arises, no matter painful, no matter scary. Ultimately, I know all is illusion, and when I sit in the posture of a Buddha, I'm willing to face them, and therefore have the potential of realizing myself as a Buddha. So then, posture is attitude and energy at the same time. Attitude is energy. So then, how do we get our spine straightened out? Most of us sit a lot in the modern day world, sit in front of computers, sit on office chairs, and there's a habit of having the shoulders drop forward, yeah, and basically developing a little bit of a hunchback, right? This doesn't serve us here. What we're doing is we are imagining the following thing, that if we could extend the spine, and the spine would go through the skull and come out of the top of the head, this is where the crown chakra is. Now what we want to do is we want to imagine that the spine is extended, and the point where it comes out of the head, this is the point that we're looking for. This is our center of gravity. Why is it our center of gravity? People will say the center of gravity is here in the abdomen. That is correct. But if we sit perfectly straight, we are aligned with our center of gravity in the abdomen. All right. So then we imagine that a rope is attached here, where the spine would come out of the skull, and now it pulls us up. And if we visualize this, it happens naturally that our spine straightens out. So when it's straightened out, this is the posture that you want to keep. Now we don't want to be tense in meditation. So it's very important that you sit with a minimum of muscle tension. When you get into that position by straightening out the spine like so, then at first you will keep up a certain amount of muscle tension. With more and more practice, you learn to reduce the muscle tension to a bare minimum, to not disrupt your breathing while you're sitting straight up. All right. The next thing that is important when the spine is straightened out is that you relax your jaw, you relax your shoulders, you drop your shoulders. Why is this so? Because conditioning is karma. And many of us have traumatic experiences. And that means we have fight or flight responses. If I want to sit like a Buddha, I need to make sure that no matter what I see in meditation, I don't get into a fight or flight response, which means I tensen up, right? When people get into a fight, for example, when they're angry, the first thing is they tense up their shoulders, right? And they duck their head. And this is a fight response, but can also be a flight response, right? Protecting yourself. So, but every time we do this, we program something into our nervous system, and we are stuck with that energy. In Zazen, we practice to let energy flow through us without resistance, no matter what the energy is. We're withholding judgment here. So then, we need to make sure that we are in a state of non-resistance. That means we're not getting into a biological reaction. To make sure this is the case, we breathe into our stomach, just let's say 2 or 3 centimeters below the navel. That's the second chakra. If we look upwards from the spine, we have the root chakra, we have the chakra here, we have the solar plexus chakra, heart chakra, throat chakra, crown chakra, and here's of course the third eye, right? And through Kundalini practice, at some point, the Kundalini energy rises up, starts stimulating all the chakras, and let's say assist you in undoing all the blockages of trauma. But this is advanced practice. This is not where we're going today, because we are laying the foundation for your house. So then, in order to not have the fight or flight response, we relax the shoulders, straighten out our spine, we drop the jaw, and we also let go of all tension in our hands. There are many ways of holding your, let's say, of having hand positions in meditation. Because in the Soto school, so cosmic mudra, so then you try to have your thumbs connect right where the navel is, and you try to build an oval. That oval doesn't need to be perfect, but it is important that your hands are relaxed. Because if you build tension in the hands, you're reacting. You're acting from conditioning. So if I have a thought right now, and for example the thumbs press, that means I have reacted. Yeah, that means conditioning has taken over. So therefore I need to learn to keep my hands relaxed, to drop my shoulders, to drop my jaw, to straighten out the spine, to elevate it even a little bit. Now I'm sitting in a Zazen position. Right? Now what we do is when we find the posture, and we have established it with a certain amount of muscle tension, now we reduce the muscle tension to a minimum. At the same time, we keep our awareness 2 centimeters below the navel, and now we watch how our stomach expands and retreats. That's all we do during meditation. We shift our whole awareness here and just watch how it expands and how it retracts. We do not manipulate our breathing. We don't use a breathing technique. This is something for later. When we have learned to let go of control, then we can apply certain techniques. But for now, it's about letting go of control, letting go of egoic attachment. So therefore, we just watch the breath expand, retract. Yeah? And we don't do this intellectually. We don't judge it. We don't need to comment it. And if judgment happens, we don't judge the judgment. We just watch the judgment. We let it come into our bubble of consciousness and we let it leave. But we don't react. So then the mind starts to settle. The mind starts to settle. Less and less activity. The mind is a little bit like a carousel. Right? You grab it and you start pushing it, and now it turns and turns and turns. It has momentum. Every time you check with your mind if the mind is still active, you give it another swing and another swing and another swing, and it can never settle down. In order for it to settle down, it's important you just watch its momentum. That means the thoughts are coming and they're slowly running out of momentum. You become more and more quiet, and now intuition can arise. When all bias drops, when all beliefs drops, when the mind is empty, you're inviting who you are. This is your Buddha nature arising. And it's very important that when something energetically happens in meditation, don't see it as a foreign invasion. Just because your self-concept doesn't include it, right? Your self-concept is your ego. Be aware that energies arising within you are not foreign energies. This is you. It is not something external. It's not something that is part of a dualism. It's not an invasion. It is arising within you, and it is the true you. And when you have lived so long in a dark cave, you go and you walk outside the dark cave, the light blinds you, and you get scared by the light. So often people, when they sit in meditation, they get scared of their own energy because it appears foreign to them. They didn't know it existed. They had forgotten for so long. All right. So then we watch our breath extending and retracting. That's all. Why we keep that meditation. First of all, the Zazen meditation, because sitting Zazen is very comfortable. You can also practice this in day-to-day life, and it allows you also to meditate in, let's say, when you travel. And there is rather an uncomfortable place to sit. Even with Zazen, you can sit for a while sitting half lotus or full lotus will be rather difficult on hard ground. But Zazen is something, when you practice it, you can sit like that for a very long time. Right? And if your body gets tired, just keep sitting a little longer. You will develop the stamina and therefore the ability to keep the structure intact through continuous practice. It's very important, if we want to practice self-love and compassion, that we do understand we need to embrace discomfort. Because if we can't be comfortable being uncomfortable, then external circumstances determine our state of consciousness. This is not what we're seeking. We're seeking to learn to be able to accept discomfort as an experience within the present moment. So as such, even discomfort arises in meditation, please sit with it for a while to get accustomed to it, but also with further practice, the discomfort will fade away because your body adjusts to the practice. Now, sitting half lotus or full lotus, let's say, it's often better to start with half lotus and slowly develop the dexterity over a few weeks before you can sit full lotus. Because sitting full lotus can be quite painful and the feet, of course, fall asleep. Right? And it's very important, if you sit full lotus, that you have a cushion to elevate your spine, because otherwise what you will notice if you try to sit on the ground with full lotus, even half lotus, that the muscle tension in the stomach gets very high, because you need to pull your body up in such a sitting position. That means you use a lot of muscle tension. This disrupts the breathing. It's more helpful to have a cushion that elevates your spine. That means the angle here, from legs to stomach, the angle gets wider, and therefore there's not as much muscle tension. So then, in order to sit half lotus, I adjust my position. I grab my leg from underneath and pull it up on the thigh. You can see my foot interlocks with the thigh right here. Right? This is the half lotus position. When you practice the half lotus position, you slowly develop the dexterity also for full lotus. If you can't put your foot on the thigh yet, it's okay, you just put it on the calf. Right? And when you feel comfortable having your foot on the calf, and you relax with that, you slowly, over time of several sessions, practice transitioning, putting your left foot more and more on the thigh. So, and at some point, when you have the dexterity, you can start practicing full lotus. And that means left foot is still on the thigh. Now I grab my right ankle and pull the right foot up. Don't know if you can see this clearly on the video. I hope this is so. I pull the legs in. At the same time, I push my knees a little bit together, which also makes it easier to get the feet on the thigh. So then, position in that sense otherwise is the same. I try to create an oval with my hand, have the cosmic mudra, and at the same time, I straighten out my spine, I drop my shoulders, I relax my jaw. You could also interlock your hands like this. But it's very important to have your hands connected, because if tension arises, if you're reacting psychically to any phenomena, you can feel it in the hands, because then you clasp, right? The moment you're clasping, you know you're in an unconscious state. So then you shift your awareness to your hands, you let go of the hands, the shoulders relax, the rest of the body relaxes, you keep watching your breath. So your body is your indicator. Your body is a metaphor of your state of consciousness. Your body will react to every thought, every, let's say, judgment, every interpretation of the experience that you're having. If you think something is scary, the body will react in a fearful manner. So therefore, if you, let's say, forget to watch your thoughts, let's say you struggle to maintain keeping your awareness here, in the abdomen, and thoughts take over. This can happen, all right? But if you also pay attention to your hands, you realize the moment you grab, oh, I have reacted to a thought, I was unconscious. And then you relax again. Yeah? You relax, come back. You feel your body. No matter what's in it, you don't resist it. No matter what energies are rising, what shadows, what demons. Every demon is a need that was rejected in your childhood. Demons are not evil, they're just scared, they're confused. And then we invite them in, we serve them tea. So, if you are in a situation where there's a lot of turmoil in your mind, when there's a lot of relative suffering, subjective suffering. Suffering is always subjective. Everything is universal, nothing is personal. But the moment we make it personal through identification, we start suffering. So then there is the moment then to apply a breathing technique. And since it's very difficult to hear on the microphone, I will show you with hand movement how the breathing technique works. If we want to sink in deeply, we need to practice letting go. And here's something that every being does, that breathes. So for example, if you have a cat or a dog, just before they're falling asleep, they give this huge sigh, this like, and then they fall asleep. When we die, we do the same thing. It is surrender. It is letting go. And letting go is our friend here. So then, in order to let go, we extend the out-breath. So let's say, I'll show you with my hand position what I do. So first of all, I breathe in. You can see that I try to prolong the out-breath as long as possible, because this is the letting go. This is the surrender of control. But what I also do is that at the highest point of inhalation, I hold for, let's say, 2 seconds. And at the lowest point of exhalation, I also hold for 2 seconds. Yeah. So what we have a regular in-breath, we hold for a little bit, then we have a prolonged out-breath, and then we hold for a little bit. When you do this breathing technique for a little bit, your nervous system gets accustomed to it. So when you sit in meditation and you do it, at some point you can let go of it and it happens automatically. Why I don't teach this for beginners is often because now they have another element of control. They're already controlling, they're already afraid through their conditioning in the modern society that we live. They're already struggling. Now if I give them another tool to exercise control, they will meddle with their breath, and this will make their breathing unnaturally and disrupted. So then, for beginners, it's very important just to watch your breath. If you've practiced for a while, and you might be in a challenging situation, you can practice extending the out breath. It will help you settle, it will help you let go of control. And this is where it is going, because nothing needs control. This is a belief, it's a fearful belief that things need control. But the more we exercise control, whatever we exercise control over, we give it power over us. There's this profound, deep, mystical meaning. Because all the demons that we see in the world, everything that we reject or everything that we project anger on, frustration on, is what actually resides with our own consciousness. Outside is just a reflection of it. So whatever you reject in the outside world exists within you, you have disowned it. Your self-concept, your ego is in rejection to that part of you. And this is because of trauma, painful experiences. And from the perspective of the ego, whatever is inside energetically, and is usually not in the waking consciousness, appears evil, appears threatening. But if we approach it with love, those demons transform often into parts of our childhood, needs that were rejected early in life. And when we do that, we fuse with them, we reintegrate them into the personality. We heal the split within the psyche, and a fully integrated person becomes aware of spirit, not before that. So therefore, the inner clearing out not only restores peace within ourselves, but also gives birth to peace in what you perceive as the external world. A very profound Zen Buddhist saying is, there is no inside, there is no outside. That means everything you try to eliminate in the external world will only cause further suffering because it is within you. If you don't heal the root cause within you, the manifestations in your life will be painful manifestation. And this is then karma in a sense that works itself out. You need the external experience of karma as long as you don't do the inner work. When we do the inner work, when we face our shadows, when we turn inward, we then change our state of consciousness, we transform those painful energies, we embrace those demons, and then slowly what we manifest in the external experience, so to speak, is actually one with our internal experience, is one and the same. So therefore, working on the inner parts brings what is outside of you into alignment. So the priority needs to be not to fix something on the external plane, even though there are practical matters to attend to. It is your state of consciousness, no matter what you do, that produces a certain experience. So there is no cause and effect. Cause and effect are one. Consciousness and its mirror are one. There is no separateness. There is no duality. Therefore, also, there is no good and evil. What you reject outside is within yourself. So therefore, the evil that you look for in the external world and that you might, let's say, project blame on is actually something that you feel deeply guilty of inside of yourself. So then we go beyond guilt, we embrace lovingly and transform our demons. Now mind you, in many Buddhist traditions, in many temples, you can see that demons are placed in the temples. And it's a little bit of a cosmic joke because they only appear to demons for those that are not awakened. Because when you face your demons, they turn into beings of light. That means you recognize truth and you leave the ground of the duality, you leave the ground of good and evil, and you understand that nothing is truly evil, but that these are rejected needs and old fears and old trauma. And once you integrate them into yourself, awakening happens. So therefore, the demons are the great teachers that bring us wisdom and hidden secrets that we have rejected about ourselves. All right. Contemplate about that. Be kind to yourself in the practice. Yeah? Try to practice determined, but at the same time, not with a hard mindset. Be gentle with yourself. Practice thoroughly, but don't practice hard in a sense that you practice for results. Practice out of compassion towards yourself. And if you heal yourself, you do the world a great service. When you end your own suffering, you will, in that sense, only extend the hand of love to every other one that you meet, and everyone you meet is ultimately yourself. Contemplate about that. Be well.